What year is it? The question seems simple. But what if the answer is a lie? A lie 300 years in the making. There's a radical, unsettling theory that claims 3 centuries of our past, a huge portion of the Dark Ages, were entirely invented. That great kings who define our history are nothing more than ghosts. That our entire timeline is a fabrication. In this video, we put history itself on trial. First, you will hear the case of the prosecution, presenting the chilling evidence that our past was stolen from us. Then, you will hear the defense, as mainstream historians fight to protect the official record from what they call a grand illusion. If you dare to question the very fabric of time, subscribe Echoes from the Past. The trial is about to begin. Our trial begins with the architect of this historical heresy. In the late 20th century, a German historian named Herbert Illig put forth a proposition, so daring it was dismissed by academics as pure fantasy. He claimed to have found evidence of a forgery on a scale almost too vast to comprehend. We will now examine his evidence, piece by piece. Let us present Exhibit A, the calendar crime. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII reformed the Julian calendar. The calendar had been drifting out of sync with the seasons. And to correct it, the Pope decreed that 10 days would simply be skipped. The day after October 4th, 1582, became October 15th. But here, Illig found his first clue. He argued that based on the known slow error rate of the Julian calendar, after more than 1,600 years of use, the drift should have been 13 days, not 10. So where did the missing 3 days of error go? Illig proposed a chilling answer. Those 3 days of error never accumulated, because the 300 years in which they would have occurred never happened. 297 phantom years, hidden in a simple mathematical discrepancy. Next, Exhibit B, the archaeological void. We looked at the period Illig identifies as fraudulent, from roughly 614 to 911 AD. He argues this is an era of profound silence. While surrounding periods show dynamic evolution in art, technology, and building techniques, this era appears strangely stagnant. The architecture of the Carolingian period, he claims, is suspiciously similar to Roman architecture from centuries earlier. There's supposed lack of unique, verifiable archaeological finds that could be definitively dated to the specific 300-year window. It's as if, for 3 centuries, humanity simply stopped innovating, content to merely copy the past. Or, Illig suggests, it is because there was no one there to innovate. The period is a blank slate because it is an invention. Finally, Exhibit C, the Phantom King. To populate this invented era, the conspirators needed a hero, a figure so grand he could anchor the entire lie. They created Charlemagne. Look at his story. A brilliant military commander, a legal reformer, a patron of the arts, the uniters of Europe, the first Holy Roman Emperor. He is a figure almost too perfect, a character from legend, not from history. Herbert Illig argues that Charlemagne is precisely that, a mythological hero, an ideal king fabricated and inserted into the phantom years to give them a sense of gravity and purpose. The greatest king of the Dark Ages, he claims, never drew breath. A case for a crime of this magnitude requires more than just evidence. It requires a motive, a reason powerful enough to compel men to rewrite reality itself. The prosecution alleges that this was no random act, but a conspiracy with a clear and ambitious goal orchestrated by 2 of the most powerful men of their time. The first alleged conspirator, the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, a young, ambitious ruler with a grand vision of a renewed Roman Empire, a renovatio imperii Romanorum. He was educated by the finest minds and saw himself as a philosopher king destined for greatness. The second alleged conspirator, Pope Sylvester II, born Gerbert of Aurillac. He was one of the most brilliant scholars in all European history, a master of mathematics, astronomy, and logic, far ahead of his contemporaries. He was Otto's tutor and closest advisor. Together, they were the ultimate power couple of the 10th century. But what was their motive? According to theory, it was a prophecy. The year 1000 AD loomed large in the Christian imagination. It was seen as a potential date for the second coming of Christ, the apocalypse, a moment of profound, world-altering significance. Otto III, the theory claims, wanted to be the emperor reigning at this exact prophetic moment. He wanted his rule to coincide with the dawn of a new millennium under Christ. There was just one problem. He was living in the 7th century, not the 10th. So, with the help of the genius Pope Sylvester II, a plan was hatched. They would simply move time forward by fabricating chronicles, forging documents, and inventing 297 years of history, populated by the heroic figure Charlemagne, to create a fabricated lineage for Otto. They could place themselves exactly where they wanted to be, at the center of the world, in the most important year in history. It was the ultimate power grab, not just conquering lands or peoples, but conquering time itself. The prosecution has rested its case. A compelling story of conspiracy based on perceived gaps and anomalies. Now, it is time for the defense. Mainstream history, backed by centuries of scholarship, takes the stand to respond. First, the defense addresses a calendar crime. The claim of a 3-day discrepancy is the bedrock of Illig's theory, but historians argue it contains a fatal flaw. Illig bases calculations on the entire span of time since the Julian calendar's implementation. However, Pope Gregory's reform was not intended to reset the calendar to the time of Caesar, but to realign the spring equinox to the date it held during the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. This was the council that established key Christian doctrines. When you calculate the accumulated error from 325 to 1582, the drift is almost precisely the 10 days that were skipped. There is no missing time. The central pillar of the phantom time hypothesis, historians argue, is built on a simple miscalculation. Next, the defense tackles the archaeological void. The idea of a 300-year silence is compelling only if you look at the world through a purely Eurocentric lens. While Western Europe was indeed experiencing a period of regression after the fall of Rome, the rest of the world was anything but silent. During Illig's supposed phantom centuries, the Islamic Golden Age was flourishing, with groundbreaking advances in science, medicine, and philosophy from Baghdad to Cordoba. In the East, the powerful Tang dynasty ruled over a unified and prosperous China. In England, the Anglo-Saxon epic Beowulf was composed. And crucially, we have astronomical records. Halley's Comet, for example, was observed and recorded by astronomers in China and Byzantium during this non-existent period, with sightings that match perfectly with its known orbital path. The world, the defense argues, did not stop just because one part was struggling. Finally, the defense presents its evidence for the king, Charlemagne. To claim he was an invention, one must assume a conspiracy so vast it defies all logic. We have not just one, but multiple independent contemporary sources that speak of him. His life was meticulously documented by his own court scholar, Einhard. But more importantly, we have records from outside his sphere of influence. The Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, Harun al-Rashid, exchanged multiple diplomatic missions with Charlemagne's court, an event recorded in both Frankish and Arab chronicles. To believe Charlemagne is a phantom, you must believe the conspirators not only forged 1,000 documents in Europe, but also traveled to Baghdad to forge the records of their enemies. The evidence, the defense concludes, is overwhelming. Charlemagne was real. The arguments have been made. The evidence and the rebuttals have been presented. We are now left in the jury box, tasked with delivering a verdict on history itself. The prosecution's case, presented by Heribert Illig, is elegant in its simplicity. It identifies apparent inconsistencies in our historical record, a calendar that seems miscalculated, a period of supposed stagnation, a hero that seems too perfect, and weaves them into a single grand narrative of deception. It is a theory that feeds our suspicion that the official story is never the whole story. The defense's case, presented by mainstream history, is one of overwhelming collaborative evidence. It counters with calculations based on established historical precedents and points to a world outside Europe that was teeming with life. It presents a web of interconnected records from different cultures in different languages, all speaking of the same events and the same people. It asks us to trust the combined work of thousands of historians over centuries. So, what is the verdict? Here, we must apply a principle known as Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. What is more likely? That a vast, complex, multi-continental conspiracy was flawlessly executed by a handful of men, forging thousands of documents and manipulating astronomers and chroniclers from Spain to China, all without leaving a single confession or whistleblower. A secret kept for over 1,000 years? Or is it more likely that our historical record, while messy, incomplete, and filled with its own biases and errors, is broadly accurate? Ultimately, the phantom time hypothesis may not be a question of fact versus fiction, but a question of faith. Faith in the established narrative, or faith in the possibility of a hidden truth. Its true value isn't whether it's provably true, but that it acts as a powerful thought experiment. It forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. How fragile is our understanding of the past? And who gets to write it? The final verdict we leave to you. In the end, perhaps the ultimate value of a theory like this isn't found in proving it right or wrong. Its true power lies in its ability to force us to re-examine the very foundations of what we accept as truth. It reminds us that history is not a static monument of stone, but a shifting narrative written and rewritten by each generation. Whether our timeline is true or false, the act of questioning it is what keeps the echoes of the past alive. History is never a closed case. For more investigations into the mysteries that lie buried beneath the official record, subscribe to Echoes from the Past and join the discussion in the comments below. After hearing all the evidence, what do you believe?